January 11th, 2009, 9 days before President Obama was inaugurated, here is what he had to say about
I also have a belief that we need to look forward as opposed to looking backwards. And part of my job is to make sure that, for example, at the CIA, you've got extraordinarily talented people who are working very hard to keep America.
We need to look forward rather than look like, really? John Nichols is with us. He is the Washington correspondent for The Nation magazine. You can read John's writings over at thenation.com. And John, it's always great to have you call up. What's up?
Well, it happens, Tom, that I'm also a listener. And I was very intrigued in your conversation, and I wanted to throw a thought in as regards accountability for former President Bush and former Vice President Cheney. And it relates to what you'll talk about in your last segment on Nixon. One thing that people don't understand is that it is possible for Congress to hold a former president, former vice president, to account for their wrongdoing after they have left office. The impeachment power, as well as the authority to censure, relates to accepting the benefits of office. What you take away from a sitting president or a former president is the benefits of office. And as a former president, former vice president, both Cheney and Bush take pensions as well as a host of other benefits of office.
Right.
And so as we talk about this, I think people often, they'll hear the term war crimes, they will hear about international tribunals, and they will become skeptical, as they are also of congressional intervention. But it is important to understand that wise members of Congress in the past have recognized the value of this. Famously, right after Watergate, when Nixon resigned, John Moss, who was a great member of Congress from Northern California, went to Tip O'Neill and said, even though Nixon has resigned, we must complete the impeachment because we have to make it absolutely clear that these actions are not acceptable to the American people, that they are not acceptable to the representatives of the American people. And as you entertain these discussions, I would just throw that in the mix as an important part of the discourse, because it wasn't just, the courts or some other entity that failed to hold Bush and Cheney to account. Our Congress.
Did Jerry Ford's pardon of Nixon and his cronies for all crimes, not just related to Watergate, did that blow up the impeachment process, or did just the steam went out of Congress when he resigned and Tip O'Neill?
The steam went out of Congress before Ford's pardon. This is an important thing to understand.
Yeah.
It was an election year,
right.
And the Democrats knew they were going to do well. And frankly, the top-level Democrats decided not to pursue it. But when I was writing about these issues a few years back, I spent a lot of time on what John Moss, who turned out also to be one of the great members of Congress on consumer issues and civil rights, what John Moss said about this. And that is, sometimes you need to put aside electoral concerns as well as, all the other sort of desires to look forward, not backward, and settle an issue.
Right.
Because as Moss said at the time, if you didn't settle Watergate, there would be future corruption that would make Watergate look like nothing. Similarly, I would argue that the failure to hold George Bush and Dick Cheney to account has created long-term problems, which you're highlighting today, but also problems with general accountability for the executive branch.
Right. And not just in the United States. You've got every tin pot dictator around the world saying, well, if the United States tortures and, they get away scot-free, I can do that. And, wars of aggression, Iraq, Afghanistan, whatever, I can do that. It just seems to me, John, that lawlessness breeds lawlessness. And there's a point at which we need to say enough.
I think your point is very well taken. And I think it's vital to recognize that you can do this after the fact, after the immediate moment. Today is the 50th anniversary of the Gulf of Tonkin vote. Only two senators voted no on August 7th, 1964, Wayne Morris and Ernest Green. But 6 years later, the U.S. Senate overturned the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, recognizing that they had been wrong. Took them 6 years, and it still didn't do enough. But the fact of the matter is there's plenty of precedent for going back at issues, including accountability issues. And I'll remind you that the person who moved the resolution to overturn the Gulf of Tonkin resolution was not some big liberal. This was being done. Republicans were working with Democrats.
Well, it's because the Gulf of Tonkin was promoted by a Democratic president, Lyndon Johnson.
Yeah, but there was a Republican president when they overturned it. And the point was that Democrats and Republicans recognized that, the Senate had been deceived,
right,
that they had done the wrong thing. And they went back at it. I really think that one of the things we have lost in the last 30 to 40 years in our politics is this willingness to go back and examine issues.
The idea of accountability. We've essentially established that our senior-most officials, our Supreme Court, they are Lord Monarchs. We have a constitutional monarchy now. They are the monarchs. They get to vote on whether our laws are passed. The Supreme Court of no other country, no other fully developed country can do. And the kings and queens of Europe can't do that. The Queen of England can't strike down a law passed by Parliament. But our Supreme Court can, even though that's not in the Constitution. So we've got a lawless Supreme Court, and then we've established this doctrine of our presidents being above the law. Bill Clinton not following on the Iran-Contra investigations, basically pardoning Reagan and Bush, and then obviously Jerry Ford pardoning Nixon, and Barack Obama saying with regard to George W. Bush, I just want to look forward. I mean, this is. We have fundamentally changed the nature of our republic, I believe.
I think you're right, Tom, and I think also this is one thing I would emphasize. When we talk about these accountability moments, we often think that they really will be seen through. I mean, I saw some people think they will be seen through to a final resolution. History tells us that's not always the case.
Yeah.
But what is important, but perhaps is even more important than
John, we got to wrap it right here. I'm sorry.
Simply doing it.
Yeah, doing it. There you go. John Nichols with thenation.com. Thank you, John.